will you mind sharing your experience with El Rufai in terms of something similar to what Dele Farotimi is going through? I think probably you shared it somewhere else. Someone was telling me that you have a story with El Rufai.
El Rufai was going to get me abducted in 2019, 2020. On the eve of the election, the 2019 election, presidential election, was scheduled for, what was it, February 17th or thereabouts, or 19th? February 19th, I believe, 2019. And the day before that, on the Friday before that, El Rufai addressed a press conference, standing by himself in front of his office in Kaduna, in which he claimed that 66 or so about Fulanis had been massacred in Kajuru. And I listened to that as it was happening, and so I called around, I called the police, and the police were denying all of that. And the police eventually actually did say that they told El Rufai that that was not true. And they discouraged him from making any such claims. Of course, it was the eve of an election. He was fretting about whether or not he could configure the kind of votes he needed to edge ahead and come ahead as the winner of the election in Kaduna. And, Kajuru was not particularly well disposed to him, but had a collection of votes. If they could suppress it, that would make it easier, it seemed to me. So I went on channels and denounced him. And so after he was returned, he instructed that I be charged with incitement and injurious falsehood arising from this emission in which I said what he said was manifestly unfounded, and in respect of which I clearly had the support of the security agencies for the position that I articulated. Now, I'm just providing a background here, but what transpired in terms of the actual facts is that El Rufai instructed his people to. I was by myself one day, and I got a call. I don't usually take calls from numbers I don't know, but I got a call from this number, and for some reason I picked it up, and it was a law enforcement agent who was calling to bring my attention to the fact that there was a charge against me before this magistrate in Kaduna, and that I had refused to appear on 2 previous occasions. And so they were processing a warrant to pick me up from wherever I could be found in Nigeria, and that I should please do something about it. He said he didn't know who I was or where I was, but that he had been told about me and he didn't think this should be happening to me. This guy came from Kogi State, I believe. So that was the first time I was hearing about this thing. And so I quickly instructed lawyers in Kaduna, and they went. We found the magistrate's court, and the guy had provided the details of that. We found the magistrate's court, and we found the documentation with assistance of the records, with assistance of the court officials. And when we found it, we found out that the charge preferred against me did not even have a charge number. It said on this day from channels in Abuja, I had said this, which constituted incitement, but there was no charge number. And so we filed preliminary objections. We then filed for judicial review of the process and sought an interim injunction, which then became interlocutory thereafter, to restrain the process until the judicial review was heard. The magistrate is now retired. And as he was retiring, essentially, he did, on the day basically that he retired, he did tell us that he did not like what he was told to do. And that he was coming to the end of his judicial career, and he did not want to be persecuted by the governor or the governor's people. But however, that he didn't feel that doing the kind of injustice, to use his words, that they wanted him to do was good for himself or for the system. So what he did was he was very grateful that we had filed the objection. So he kept the file there until he retired. And as he was retiring, we were having the elections last year, and the governor retired from the government house. So the case died naturally. So in that sense, I was lucky. As I was telling somebody, I was very lucky, because all they had to do was, if they hadn't met the police officer, they would have issued the warrant for me, and I was going to be picked up by people who would relay me somewhere, and then people would say I had been abducted, only to discover me showing up in Kaduna or in a prison in Kaduna under the control of El Rufai and his forces. And God knows what would have happened. Now, Audu Mekori was abducted from Lagos. That case is now before the Supreme Court. The High Court found in his favor, awarded substantial damages. The damages were reduced a little by the Court of Appeal, but still found in his favor. The El Rufai's government has appealed to the Supreme Court, and my hope is that instead of keeping that case locked up in the Supreme Court, the Kaduna State government can simply settle the matter, so that bygones, as Nigerians like to say, will be bygones in that sense. Now, Stephen Kefas was also picked up in Port Harcourt and abducted and sent to Kaduna. He was kept in Kaduna, in the prison in Kaduna, for 167, just under 170 days. Right? So that is just about half of a year, but close to 6 months. Now, so these things are real. And these are not the only people who have been abducted from different parts of the country. But El Rufai was particularly specialized in this kind of operation. And as I said, I was lucky. A few other people were not as lucky as I was.